Welcome to the first in a series of the Sales Academy webinars. Today's topic is discovering how behavioral analytics drives a believable forecast. Let's get started with some quick introductions. So tell the listeners, Chris, who are Qlik and what do they do?
Sure, thank you, David. So Qlik are the leader in the visual analytics market. In terms of our size, we have 40,000 customers worldwide and work with our partner, a channel network of 1,700 partners. In terms of my divisions, then we have a global hub strategy. So we have hubs in Vancouver, in Winnersh, in Barcelona, Singapore, and more recently in Tokyo and Sydney. And we employ 200 heads worldwide within our hubs. And as you know, all of these heads are licensed for the Sumo for sales.
So tell everyone, what do you do at Qlik?
So I'm an inside sales director and run multiple teams across EMEA. What that really breaks down into is to drive revenue performance across each of those teams. And just as importantly, it's to prepare my reps for their next role. And that's done through coaching and development and driving improvement and growth.
Excellent. So during the course of the seminar, if you have any questions, please post them into the group. And also you can follow this conversation online through the hashtag. So please feel free to post on that as well. So an overview of today. As an analytics company, Qlik are very well versed at mining data to create valuable and actionable insights. Not afraid to try out a new approach, Qlik partnered with Cloud Apps over 2 years ago to work on motivating their inside sales staff to stretch themselves further. They quickly realized that they had created a comprehensive behavioral tracking capability that could be mined to predict outcomes such as who will this opportunity close. Let's dig into what that really means by asking Chris to share his experience with us. There'll be plenty of time to ask questions, so let's crack on. So, Chris, tell us, what are behavioral analytics?
So behavioral analytics, these are the high-value behaviours that most top performers exhibit. So at Qlik, we wanted to understand what behaviours do our core performers display, what makes them successful. How can we understand what those behaviours are? And once we had that understanding, how can we then motivate the wider sales team to display the same behaviours?
Why is this different from standard data I could track inside Salesforce?
I guess a lot of the data that we use is already in Salesforce. The challenge is getting that data in a format that you can use. So if I wanted to do some high-level analysis on a team of 80 reps, to try and create the reports that I'd need to get that information, the volume of reports that I would need, no doubt there'll be a huge data set coming back in each report. And really, the amount of time it would take to do the analysis, and compare the data to get real insight, I've never met a sales manager that actually has that much time on their hands. With behavioural analytics, it's almost tracking the actions rather than the raw data. So we can get instant insight into what the reps are doing, what's working, what's not working. And we can, the time that frees up in terms of not having to do the research because we've got the data at our fingertips, we then invest into coaching and development with our reps. So I'll give you I'll elaborate on that and maybe give you some examples of things that we could and couldn't track. If I wanted to run a report in Salesforce, for example, that showed me rep talk time that's greater than 4 hours every day, or perhaps the number of times an opportunity gets stuck in a certain stage for 15 days or more, then this is the type of insights that we're now gaining through behavioural analytics.
What sort of analysis and insight can you drive from this data?
So it's possible to track the good and bad behaviours. At Qlik, we track a number of KPIs that give us real insight into both. So it allows us to gain insight into things like the likelihood of an opportunity to close, the propensity of a customer to churn. It can even give us an indication as to a rep's likelihood of churning as well. And we're able to attribute a score to these behaviours, but we'll talk about that more later.
So in summary, behavioural analytics it can give you the quality of the data of your team's performance, not just the quantity of the team's performance.
Absolutely.
So how has the availability of this insight changed the way Qlik works?
So it's had a big impact on the way that we run the organisation. We're now able to get a very clear picture, the innovation that our top performers bring to our sales process. And, we can understand those behaviours and motivate and coach everyone on the floor to follow the same good behaviours. We can also track bad behaviours as well. And, if we can see certain situations arising, then it allows us to head off issues before they arise by coaching people in real time.
So this analysis allows us to coach people based on the performance of our top reps and enhancing the skill set of the entire team. So what sort of behaviours indicators do you track, both positive and negative?
So as I mentioned, we track, we have the ability to track a whole host of KPIs because we can. But I'll give you an example of both. So we motivate rapid lead follow-up. So at Qlik, we understand that 50% of the time a prospect will purchase from the first responder to their lead. We also know from our own analysis that once a lead is 5 days old, the conversion rate to opportunity will reduce by 70%. So this is exactly why we motivate rapid lead follow-up. So we wanted to make sure that within a 48-hour period of leads hitting our business, that someone would call that lead to qualify it. And we knew that if we did this, that would lead to a far greater chance of the opportunity closing. So we also track negative things, as I mentioned. So an example of that are opportunities that are moving through the sales process slowly, opportunities that are dragging in terms of sales stage velocity. And by having that insight, that allows us to make sure that those deals move through the pipeline at a natural rate. We can use coaching, we can deploy additional resource. And it helps us qualify out deals that maybe we're not going to win as well. So, we think of this as a monitoring tool of our vital signs.
So tracking both good and bad behaviours will give you a clearer picture of the health of your sales process and how your team actually follows it.
Absolutely.
How has this impacted your ability to forecast?
Well, as you can imagine, by having this type of insight into the business, it means that we've got increased confidence in what is in our pipeline. And especially for the later stage deals, we have a clear picture, of all the high value behaviours exhibited by the team to get to that point. So with that information, it allows us to tally up a total score for that opportunity based on whether the right things have happened at the right time. If the score passes that threshold, then the deal makes it into the forecast. If it doesn't pass the threshold, however, then that's a clear indication that we need to do a closer review on the opportunity.
So we know exactly which behaviours lead to positive outcomes and which indicate a possible failure. It's now clear what success looks like from our own business. What outcomes have you seen?
So taking this tracking approach has quickly highlighted that some of the team were serial offenders at, for example, things like allowing their sales data to slip into the past. It wasn't something they realised that they were doing. And with coaching, it's allowed us to eradicate some of the sloppier deal and forecast management habits that we had. Secondly, it creates a really fun-filled environment to work in. It helps add a fun side to the serious work we do. So as a sales manager, I'm constantly chasing my reps on the lead follow-up and to increase the response time to leads. And it doesn't seem at times how often I chase the team, I never really get that response that I'm looking for. And as you can see on the side, as a result of using behavioural analytics and actually making the task fun and motivating the reps, we saw a 230% increase in the lead response time. That then gives us more pipeline. As a result of the coaching and development time that we had with the reps, you've got a workforce that's increasing their skill level. That's also driving pipeline stability, pipeline believability. 140% increase in pipeline is it's not to be sniffed at when you're carrying a revenue target. And the final thing that I've included as well is It includes the hygiene of the system. So with all of these systems, the better the quality of data in the system, the better analysis that we get out. And we increased the volume of notes the reps were adding by 100%.
Excellent, great results. So now some question answer time. So let's look into the questions from the audience and see some of the things that they're asking. How easy was it to get started with this approach?
It was relatively straightforward. You know, compared to some of the other software implementations we've done, then this implementation was relatively pain-free. As you know, at the time, I think we clearly understood the value that we were going to get from this solution, and we wanted to deploy it as quickly as we could. But from an operational point of view, there were still some large global ongoing projects, that were taking up the resources. So we initially went ahead with the managed service, where Sumo did all the heavy lifting for us, and we were up and running in a really reduced time frame.
And how have you refined your approach as you've been developing this?
So this is something that we're constantly refining. It's in analytics we say there's no destination, and I think it's exactly the same with behavioural analytics and the Sumo that we use. It's a journey. You're constantly developing and driving innovation in your business, and alongside that, we're constantly learning where we need to be coaching the reps to drive that innovation and improve further. So for us, it's a simple example of that is if you're at the beginning of the month and you obviously want to drive pipeline generation, but at the end of the month you might want to change the focus more to around revenue, and closing. So for us, we're always evolving constantly. We're always developing, and this is right at the heart of that process.
And as you did this, did you concentrate specifically on your top performers, or were you trying to get more of your core people to become more and more like the top performers? Where was the biggest impact?
It's interesting. I mean, you look at the core performers, and often they tend to be, or your top performers tend to be the worst offenders for actually using the systems. And where we saw the biggest gain is the core performers. That bulk of the 70% of the sales team, and we knew that if we could move them to the right, then that's where our biggest growth was going to come from, and that's what we've seen.
Excellent. Okay, just check if there's any other questions. So let's begin to summarize. So three things to take away here then. So do you know why your top performers consistently achieve where others do not? Have you got that insight to understand what they do and why they do it? Do you know the percentage of deals that actually ended up closing from your forecast across the last 4 quarters? And modern sales leaders like Chris coach everyone along the entire journey. Do you? So thanks for joining. Now at next week's seminar, we'll be working with John O'Neill from the post office as to why modern sales leaders coach for success. So I hope you can join us then. Thank you and goodbye.